Welcome to the Damascus Encounter. In Acts chapter 9, verses 4 through 6, Saul was on his way to Damascus to bring in prisoners for the king, those who were following the path of Jesus. He heard that voice that said to him, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" He asked the question, "Who are you, Lord?" And he got the response, "I am the Lord Jesus, whom you persecute." From that moment, Saul's path changed and he became Paul. We naturally are prone to think that those were in the Bible times. But the truth is, today, Jesus is still in the business of encountering his children, of meeting with us and bringing that big turnaround in our situation. On the program Damascus Encounter today, I have someone who will be sharing with us his own dramatic experience when he met Jesus and when the big turnaround came. Welcome with me to the program, Christogonus, Njoko. Christogonus, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
So tell me a little bit about Christogonus, Njoko, just your background.
My name is Christogonus Njoko. I am born in a family of 3 boys, a Catholic family.
Okay.
And I am the second. I am a native of Imo State, but all my life I've lived it here in Ogun State. To be precise, here in Ilishan Remo.
All right.
My primary education was here. My secondary education here as well. But my tertiary education was at University of Lagos.
Okay. So do you speak the language around here?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. So go on, let's...
Yes, my family, my parents, by God's grace, 2 of them are alive and they are here. And my other siblings are here as well.
All right.
And they are still Catholics.
So they are still Catholics and you are Seventh-day Adventists. So do you want to share with me a little bit what exactly transpired? What happened? How did you have to change from being a Catholic to a Seventh-day Adventist? Or what brought about the decision to stop being a Catholic?
In my early 20s, as a young Catholic boy, I had an encounter with God. I grew up to know how to read the Bible and to also read other articles. I read the Bible and I discovered the truth. Apart from reading the Bible, I had Seventh-day Adventist friends who, at the time, invited me to programs in the church.
Okay.
And I always love to attend. Whenever I attend, I worship in a Seventh-day Adventist church. I always feel fulfilled. I feel connected. I feel the presence of God. So within me then, I knew that I was not at the right place and I needed to take a step.
Okay.
And the war, it was a war between me and my spirit. How a Catholic with my position in the church will live the faith.
So what position were you holding at that time?
Yes, I occupied different positions.
Okay.
The church secretary at the time, a secretary as well in the choir board, and the finance chairman of Ilishan Parish. Ilishan is the seat of the parish. We have Irolu and Ikene as outstations.
All right.
But Ilishan is the seat of the parish, and I happen to be the finance chairman of the committee.
So you were pretty much very important to the running and operations of the church.
Yes.
All right. So go on with this struggle within you as to whether or not should I not, or how do I take the decision?
Yes, when I discovered the truth, it was indeed a struggle. I confided with one of my elders in the church, whom I see as a father as well, what I was passing through. And to his own little understanding and effort, he tried to convince me otherwise, to remain in the faith. But I've always known that someday I will leave the Catholic Church, but when and how was not sure of.
Okay. So, your conviction about this truth that you encountered specifically, was it just about the seventh day as the day of worship, not being Sunday, it being Saturday, or there were other things that you actually found out as you studied the Bible?
On this 15th of November 2019 was the last day I worshipped in the Catholic Church. Okay. And that day, after Mass, and after remitting the fund to the parish priest, I went back home to refresh and visited the church again to have a chat with the priest to tell him about my decision to leave the church. I had 3 points which I discussed with him. Okay. One is the 7-day Sabbath, which I've asked over and over during Bible studies and also during a personal discussion. If Sunday is the 7-day Sabbath, and I would say that an honest answer was given, that no, Sunday is not the 7-day Sabbath, but the church, the Catholic Church in her wisdom, changed the day of worship for some reasons, which I am not comfortable with, which is not biblical, and which is not supposed to be.
Okay, so that was the first point. You asked him and he gave you the response. So what was the second point?
Yeah, the first, the 7-day Sabbath, he gave me a good response. The second one happened to be the relics of saints. In every dedicated Catholic altar, the relics of the patron saint would be there be planted there in the altar, and this tradition started from during the reign of Pope Felix I in the year 270, with a decree that Mass should be held at the graveyard of Matthias. Okay. But along the line, when churches started building structures, the remnants of these saints were transferred from the original places of burial to the churches, and their relics were kept in the altar. And
buried underneath?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that is how it has been. So if our center of faith and worship is Jesus and God, so I see no reason why we should have the remain of a saint, which I consider to be idolatry.
So I'm just a little bit curious. Did you read about these historical having relics of the saints buried under the altar in churches? Did you read about it as something that happened then, or it still happens till today?
It still happened. It's a tradition, and if you have an understanding of Catholic Church, they believe in tradition. Okay. So it has been a tradition, and it's still practical today. But when I asked the question, the priest was unable to give me an answer about that. His reasons is what I do not know.
Okay, did he say anything like, that's a question for another day, or that's something I can't answer?
He was
he was just silent.
He was silent and kept smiling.
Okay.
Yes.
So when he couldn't answer this, you felt in your mind the urge to ask him the third question. And the third question was centered on what?
The third point was centered on veneration of the cross and other statue in the church. He gave some explanation.
So just for the sake of our audience, veneration of the cross, that means what?
Veneration of the cross means bowing down to the cross.
Oh, okay.
Or other images
in the church. Okay.
Yes. So when I asked him the question, he gave some other reasons as he gave for the first reason. The 7-day Sabbath, when I asked him, one of the reasons he gave was that the church changed the day of worship because Christ rose
on
Sunday, being the first day. Yeah. And over time, I've asked the question whenever that response is given, that when you sleep and wake up in the morning, what next do you do? If it's not a worship day, they say, is to go to work. I said, fine. Which means Christ, in the tomb, even respected and rested. Kept the Sabbath. He woke up on a Sunday morning, the first day of the week, to conclude the work of salvation which he had finished on earth, which is recorded in the book of John 14:2-3, where he said, in my Father's house there are many mansions there. I will go and prepare a place, and when I go and come back for you, I will take you with me, so that where I am, you will be also. So Christ resurrected on a Sunday morning to finish the work of preparing a place for us, so that when he comes back, he will take us to be with him. Okay. So the third point now, the reason, he didn't give me a very good reason, but the story of the Israelite and Moses, when they spoke ill against God and they were being beaten by serpent, and God commanded Moses to mold a gold serpent, and any of them that looked on that will be healed. So that was one of the good reasons, or I call it good reasons. That was the major reason he gave, and other reasons. But I don't think that
you didn't agree with it, or it didn't sit well with you.
I didn't agree with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. His explanation did not sit. He didn't answer the question as convincingly, and so your decision stood.
Yes.
All right. So we'll come to talk again about what transpired afterwards. That is, now you took the decision, what happened afterwards. But we'll go on a short break now, and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Damascus Encounter. Still with me on the program today is Chris, who has been sharing his story about how he encountered Jesus and he decided to leave from the Catholic faith to the Seventh-day Adventist faith. So, Chris, you want to share with us a little bit. After you asked the questions, the priest answered, you were still not convinced, you decided to leave anyway. So you left. Did the church make any effort to reach out to you as to convincing you on the need to have a rethink and not leave the church?
Thank you. I recall one of the priests that used to be here in Elysian before him called me, and we spoke on phone for more than 1 hour. He informed him that I've left the Catholic Church. And other church members also personally came to me. Some called on phone for my reasons. I recall too a female friend, a church member, a Catholic, after explaining everything to her, she asked me a question. Does it mean you've been deceiving people with all your activities, how you stand in the church, how people speak good of you? Does it mean
Respected you?
you've been deceiving people? I told him no. It wasn't a deceit, but those periods I was struggling, but I can't continue to struggle. The truths I must follow, and I did.
So now, thank goodness you were able to take your stance, you stood all through, and you left the church. So now, do you want to share a little bit? Your wife now, who then was just a friend and later your girlfriend before she became your wife, she talked to you about Adventism way before you joined the church. Do you want to share a little bit about her contribution to you becoming Seventh-day Adventist?
Yes, my wife, before we got married, we used to be friends, but distant one, so to say. She used to be a Catholic as well.
Okay.
But her siblings left Catholic Church, and they tried convincing her joining Seventh-day Adventist because of her role in the church. She never paid attention, but they left her on her own. She left this community to another state far from here in the south,
Okay.
for a university education there. On her own, she was also convinced. The Holy Spirit spoke to her, and she had an encounter. And on her own, she
decided to be a
Seventh-day Adventist. Now, while she was there, anytime we talk on phone, she would tell me that I'm now a Seventh-day Adventist, and she has peace of mind, and it will be good if I will join the faith. Then, whenever she says something like that, I will just smile. But because within me, I know that I'm going to that same place. But when
you couldn't tell,
and how was what I never knew. But, as a Catholic in a Catholic home, my worry was, what would my parents say? What would my friends say? What would the priests say?
How do I convince everyone?
Yes, but when it was time, I told myself it's rather good for me to disobey man and obey God. So I took that step of following the truth. My wife, yes, when she was there, we were friends, and later, after her school, she came back here to this place, and we still remain friends. And the friendship, we became closer than we used to be. And anytime we meet, the issue of faith, the Seventh-day Adventist Church was always discussed. As two matured people, we take our time to debate about it. And I know that most of the points she raised then were good points and were true, but I was still trying to struggle with where or what I should do. But it got to a point, I told myself, I have to. When the relationship started to turn to what it is today, the issue of the Seventh-day Adventists now became a serious topic. But my wife stood her ground, and to the glory of God, I'm thankful that God used her to also help me, to redeem me.
Okay.
Yes, I've decided on my own to leave the church someday, but that's spirit to move, that zeal to move was a challenge. Not until God used her to.
So those discussions you had contributed to helping you make up your mind to just do what you have to do and do it on time.
Yes.
So did she know you were going to talk to the priest at the time you now went to speak to the priest, or she was not aware?
She was not aware.
Okay.
That particular Sunday that I went back in the evening to talk with the priest, I came back and I told her she was speechless. The only thing I can remember her saying was, "God, I thank you for using me to impact and to convince a soul." And that has always been her prayer.
That's interesting. So all along, so it was after this that you now both settled down and got married?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to share a little bit about your parents' reaction to you being raised all these years a Catholic, and then all of a sudden you bolting out from the church? What was their reaction? How did they take it?
That was not easy. And even currently, I must confess, it has not been easy. They never felt good or comfortable about my decision to leave Catholic Church for Seventh-day Adventists, but I made them see reasons. I tried to explain some things to them.
Okay.
The issue of the relics is unfortunate. Many Catholics do not know about it. Even my parents, they never knew about the issue of the relics.
Okay.
My dad is educated, but the day I mentioned the relics, he was surprised. He said, "No, there is nothing like that." But today, he understands that there's something called relics of saints in the altar of Catholic Church. It has never been easy, but I know by God's grace, with time, this whole feeling will calm down, and by God's grace, through the power of the Holy Spirit, I will be able
You're hoping
to
that they will
step
become
in, and by God's grace, they will become Adventists as well.
Okay, so your other siblings, the two other brothers, are they also Seventh-day Adventists, or they are still Catholics?
They are still Catholics.
Okay.
They are still Catholics. But my senior brother, who is the firstborn, even before I joined Adventist, sometimes once in a while he asks some questions, he makes some comments about activities of Catholic Church that he's not comfortable, with them, and even up to now, he makes such comment. I believe with time, my family will become a Seventh-day Adventist family.
Okay, so just to wrap up, as our time is about to wind down on the program, looking back the decision you took and everything so far, do you feel happy, fulfilled, or do you have any regrets, or you are just very fulfilled? Do you want to share your experience so far in the Seventh-day Adventist Church?
I must confess, I'm a fulfilled man in my newfound faith, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is the Remnant Church. For the period I've spent, I have no cause to regret, and I will never regret my action. I had an experience late last year. I worship at Heritage Church.
Okay.
We had a communion service. That was a wonderful experience compared to what I used to, have as a communion. It was truly the real.
It felt like real communion.
Yes.
Okay.
I felt the presence of God during that spiritual exercise.
That's interesting. Thank you very much for sharing your story. And I think it is safe to conclude by saying the more you have walked with Jesus in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the sweeter it has become on a daily basis. And it's a delight to have you on the program. And I'm sure someone out there has learned one or two things from your story today. That's it on the Damascus Encounter today, having heard from Chris and his wonderful experience and encounter with Jesus Christ. Perhaps you also have a beautiful story that you would love to share and you want to come on the show. It's an open invitation. You're free to be our guest on the Damascus Encounter and also share your experience to bless someone. Until next time when we come your way, I want to thank you for being a part today, and I say God bless you till we meet again.